When you say dignity has to rise above politics, black farmers are clearly not getting the dignity from the U.S. Senate, now controlled by Democrats. What needs to happen? If African Americans are being told to come out in droves and support, of course, and vote, obviously they'll vote for the Democratic Party because they make up the base of the party as an institution.
If
but
Democrats do not deliver,
willing,
people will not vote if they don't deliver. I mean, I met with Senator Reid last week and the head of the black farmers, and they've won a lawsuit. The settlements of $1 billion too. The Native Americans, it's a $3.4 billion. They've won the settlement, and the Senate would not pay them their money. Great resistance from the Republicans and some from Democrats. And so, if the people are not served, they will not vote. If the flowers are not watered, dry roots will not produce fruit. And so the Democrats have some obligation. Democrats now control the White House, House, and Senate. If there ever were a time for an urban policy, it's now. If there were a time to pay the farmers the money, now. And if they're not paid, urban policy not addressed, the price would be a lack of voting. If there's lack of voting, Democrats cannot survive.
What is Senator Reid saying? Is he gonna push this issue through? Is he gonna get the black farmers their money?
You said it was, but it didn't happen. And therefore, until it happens, we cannot rest. These 80,000 farmers, we began in the last century, 23 million acres of land. It's now down to 3 million. Because black farmers were terrorized off of their land. They were sometimes lynched, sometimes drove out by night riders. Until 65, they didn't have the right to vote. They couldn't get seed money for planting. When they planted, they could not get their product, could not get a fair price at the marketplace. They were driven off of those farms into urban America. And that was not so bad for a while because we could come here, we could make cars, we could get northern manufacturing industrial jobs, and we could say, well, the rural area is behind me. But now, Detroit, the big three used to be making cars. Now the big three, which was automobile manufacturers, now we're shuffling cars at 3 gambling casinos. So that when you go from automobile manufacturing to 3 gambling casinos, that's the big three. You go from making cars to shuffling cars, that's a radical step backwards, and therefore, I urge people who are listening and observing us, let's do something about it. Don't just observe the march. If you're a senior, you want your Social Security protected, march or come in your wheelchair. If you're a church person, you believe in the dignity of man, and you believe that we should keep our house and restore our jobs. If you're a youth and you want to have a future for yourself, lower tuition for school, and better job opportunities, we all have a reason to come together on August 28th, the anniversary of the King March in Washington, and fight in Detroit. Ground zero for urban policy for jobs and justice and peace.
All right, let's go on a break. When we come back, the Reverend David Bullock, the head of the Detroit chapter of the Rainbow Push, will join us in this conversation. You're watching Center Stage. Welcome back to our conversation with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Sr., founder and president of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Of course, joining us on this conversation is the Reverend David Bullock, who is the head of the Detroit chapter of the Rainbow Push. What do we have here, a changing of the guard?
We do, and expanding of the guard. You know, I am impressed, Reverend Bullock, and to see a generation of young ministers emerging with a social conscience, who know that there's a church duty beyond Sunday morning service. There is the church work, who's an usher, who's a deacon, who's a choir member. Then there's the work of the church to build homes for the homeless and job for the jobless and food for the hungry. And he is in that tradition of social change agent, so I admire him so much.
Reverend Bullock, let's get your take here. Detroit is a ground zero, as Reverend indicated. What do you have in store in terms of looking forward?
Well, in terms of looking forward, I want to thank Reverend Jackson for his leadership and his mentorship. And he's completely right. Jesus said, I was hungry, you fed me not. I was naked, you clothed me not. Said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. So in terms of looking forward, we just want to continue this work. We want to connect to this bridge, to Reverend Jackson, to Dr. King, to all who fought in the past for civil rights and freedom, and then move it forward into equality and economic empowerment. And so August 28th, we'll be marching. In November, we'll be voting. But even after that, we'll be organizing and mobilizing and calling the faith community and entrepreneurs and political leaders and the next generation, so to speak, the Twitter group, the Facebook group, this group, the hip-hop generation, my group, to move forward and continue to fight this fight for equality.
And you know, it's intergenerational. I mean, when you think about Reverend Ronald Anthony and NAACP and the Urban League and AFSCME, we're doing this jointly with UAW. We're building a big tent because all of us have a reason to go forward together. It's like if there's a big house, it's not enough to protect your room if the house is on fire. And we live in our own little cubicle, not knowing that right now the whole house, and when you lose millions of auto workers and auto production, the workers, what the workers consume, church dues, homes, will all rise or fall together. And so to see a mass coalition building across the lines, it's a race. When they close your plant, they cut the lights out. We all look amazing assembling the dog. It's about turning the lights on for everybody.
General Motors, GM has just changed. They're bringing a new CEO in from the Carlyle Group, and Whitaker is leaving. What's your assessment of the industry right now as it stands? Because you advocated for how do you call it, a financial relief for the auto industry.
Well, the 4,500 auto dealers in GM, 49 are black. That's my concern. That GM now is USA GM. It's really government motors. 60% owned by the U.S. government and 20% owned by Canada.
Is that a good or bad idea?
Well, right now the restructuring has not brought back workers. From 1,500,000 workers, UAW down to 400,000, and the biggest market for GM is now China for Buick, and not America. And then the day after financial reform, they bought a subprime predator company to sell cars at 18%. And so we cannot rest until we have a fair. People who are on unemployment benefit came back cars at 18%. So the struggle for justice in the industry continues.
Reverend Bullock, your church is based in Highland Park. Can you tell us in terms of what you hear from the ground? Because you know, people are faced with so many issues, and sometimes people say, "Look, I've been to these marches, or I've done this, and it has not worked." What are you hearing from the ground?
Well, you know what? Detroit is a microcosm of the urban crisis in the nation. Highland Park is a microcosm of the urban crisis in Detroit. Chrysler was based in Highland Park. Henry Ford, in fact, began his operation in Highland Park. Highland Park is the litmus test for what happens when manufacturing pulls out of urban centers. And so we have massive unemployment, massive poverty. But what we are seeing now, even in the last 3 weeks, is the sense that we can make a difference. That, you know, this rallying cry to march, to vote, to fight back is a message that we have been longing for. People have been thirsty just to hear a leader say, we can fight. Even if we lose, let's go down in a blaze of glory. And so what we've been seeing in Highland Park and Detroit are people coming alive. I've been getting phone calls from people I don't know. I don't know how they're getting my phone number. Reverend, how can I get involved? How can we get involved in this march on the 28th? And so I think there is a sense of hopelessness that is in the community, but it's only there because we haven't flipped the switch of power and turned the light on.
But they were worse in '63. The day we marched to Washington, from Texas across to Florida to Maryland, we couldn't use a single public toilet. I mean, I just left jail trying to use a public library. I just left jail trying to use a public facility in downtown Greensboro. The day we marched on Washington, Faneuil Hemmer was in jail in Mississippi being beaten by prisoners. Jim Farmer was in jail. We didn't have the right to vote. I mean, and to right to vote meant risking getting thrown in the train. They got killed. Meg Evans got killed about the right to vote. Now in Detroit, we have 567,000 registered voters, and only 12% show up. So really, we have a tailwind. There's no George Wallace to block us in Detroit. There's no Bull Connor. There's no Klan, and there's no sheets at night. We only have to do it. And if we revive our spirits, we can do it. When Detroit votes 300,000, every senator, every governor, all roads lead to Detroit. When Detroit votes, when Detroit does not vote, all roads are blocked and closed.
If Reverend Jackson has to come into Detroit and build this march on Detroit, is it not an indictment on local elected officials? What are they doing?
No, we're a family. We play different roles. I mean, we got Harold Washington in Chicago in part because of Congressman John Conyers, because of his wisdom, his insight, his experience. We in part got the right to vote in Selma, Alabama, because people went to Selma. You go to wherever's bleeding. So the issue is not about who gets the credit. We all need to close. If I have a special, I've been coming to Detroit for a long time. Reverend C.R. Franklin led this march. I was under his tutorship at that time, the father of Aretha Franklin. Walter Ruth was leading the march for UAW, and that's Bob King. So we all, because we're one, what Detroit has America's destiny in his hand. I'm here because Detroit is ground zero of the urban crisis.
All right, Ground Zero, thank you very much. The Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. from the Rainbow Push Coalition, and of course, Reverend David Billuck from the Rainbow Push Detroit chapter. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of Center Stage. I'm Banker Thompson. The march is August 28th here in Detroit. We'll see you next week.